Hello and welcome back to McClaren Performance for an episode today where I'm going to talk about a phrase that I use quite a lot when talking to athletes and clients and lots of different people really. And that is the phrase process over result. Sometimes I feel like my job is like saying the same thing over and over again and having all these phrases and words that I just repeat. And process over result is that main one. It's one I've probably used for the longest time. It's a great phrase to use for a number of different reasons that I'll go into. I think it's so applicable to athletes, to people on a number of different levels, and is important with regards to a number of different things as well. What it initially refers to is something that I always talk about quite a lot as well, is the relationship between mind, action, and result. Now, out of those three factors, what I always say is the two that are the most controllable out of them is the mind and the action, and the least controllable, the thing most outside of our hands and outside of our control, is the eventual results that we get. So what I always say really is, for the most part, forget about the result. The mind, the action, the process itself is the most important thing. That is the thing that you control, and it was the thing that have the most impact on the result at the end of the day. And that is just the surface level. I think it's really applicable, especially with golf. A football season, it goes along as well. Process over result, I think in everything is important. But it's also one of those things that I really like, because a lot of things that, hit two birds with one stone, or hit a lot of birds with one stone. It covers a lot of different things all in one package. It's really easy to understand, and it really relates to a lot of theory and foundations and other more complex things, but I think it's summarized really well in that. But I want to go in more detail about those things because I think there's a lot of interesting things to unpack in an idea like that. One of those ideas is the idea of acceptance, and that's an idea taken really from something that we call acceptance and commitment therapy. That's kind of the boring bit. Acceptance is so important in performance, because the thing is, top athletes, and especially young athletes that are developing, the idea of acceptance is such a hard thing to grasp, because if you are an athlete like that, you just want to win all the time, you want to control everything, you're not really accepting of when things go wrong or when you lose. And for the most part, especially when you're young, that's a great attitude to have, but it's one that really holds you back in the long term, because inevitably you have mistakes, you have losses, you have things that go wrong, and ultimately the long game is how can you deal with those mistakes, with those losses, with everything like that, and you ultimately deal with it through acceptance. And through acceptance, you consistently perform rather than being up and down, regardless of what happens around you. You are consistent in what you do, and that's where it relates to process over result, because in fixating on results and being so dependent on results, you can't really accept when things go wrong, and when things do go wrong, you then lose that process behind the result. You're then inconsistent in how you think and act and feel, and then because of that, you're inconsistent in your results, and it's that feedback loop of things just going really wrong. And the antidote to that is acceptance, being calm, being okay with things go wrong, but contradicting that with still a drive to improve on things and get better at what you do. Another reason why I like the phrase process over result is because it covers another thing also of being in the present, having the awareness to deal with things that are happening right now. And now this is an idea really taken from mindfulness and from meditation as well. That's a bit of a out there thing to talk about, but mindfulness and that meditation stuff is really about, can you sit and be in the present and allow thoughts and things to happen around you, and for you not to attach to those things? Can you just be aware and present and in the moment, really? I actually always talk about acceptance and awareness together, because you have to be accepting of the situations, the things that go wrong, the mistakes that you make, everything like that, and then you have to be aware of how to solve those problems in the moment, not getting judged about things that are in the past, but being focused on what the job is right now. What are you doing? Can you accept that the result isn't going your way, and can you be aware of yourself, of the process, and what you need to fix? What are you good at? What do you need to improve on to then go forward and have a little bit more control over those results? So I work with a lot of athletes, and I guess talk to people like yourselves who want to achieve and want to do things and want to go forward and have a really strong drive to do that. They won't accept failure, they want to win. That's absolutely understandable. That's probably what makes athletes so good. But to make them even better, I have talked about this quite a lot recently, there's a weird contradiction that an athlete has to find, especially top athletes, where you have that drive, that want to do something, that need to win, not necessarily need, because you want to hold that back. You want to be calm, you want to be accepting, you want to be aware alongside that, so you can actually deal with the inevitable mistakes and losses that will come, so that in the long term you carry on developing and getting better. And that kind of leads me on to my third point, and why I really like that term, process over result, because what it emphasizes is doing the right things, especially when I work with young athletes. Let's take Golf Academy, for example, and you're working with young kids who want to develop into professional golfers. They play in competitions at the moment, they might win or lose, they might get frustrated about results, and by doing so get fixated on the short term of winning competitions now and not focus on the long-term development, specifically not focusing on the process and doing the right things that mean that they will develop into professional golfers. If you focus on result, what you become is kind of reactionary to the short term and not really smart and objective and thinking about the process itself and what you really need to do, what you really need to work on. That relates a lot to kind of goal setting as well. I always talk about objective strategies, tactics, breaking down a long-term aim like an objective into those strategies, into those short-term tactics also. What process over result really means is a focus on those short-term things that you need to do and what you need to work on, regardless of what happens around you, regardless if you're winning or losing or whatever. It is about you winning in the long term, and that means focusing on the present like we talked about before, but doing the right things within that as well, doing the right work right now, day to day. And that's just the things really that are related to performance improvement, getting better at what you do as an athlete or whatever you do. I think there's another aspect to process over result as well, and it comes to just being happy in general. I think happiness is probably the most important thing. It's probably what we all want, really. And sometimes we think that results and winning is what is going to bring that happiness at the end of the day. And this is another one of those weird contradictions that I think athletes kind of need to understand, that yes, you have that drive to win. Yes, you want to do things, but you don't want to do that to an extent where you think everything is dependent on that result, winning every single second of every single day, because that's not going to happen. And that is an idea taken from Buddhism, really. Something I'd probably talk about in another episode and go into more detail about, because I love Buddhism. I think it's really interesting. But one of the main fundamental concepts of Buddhism is the idea of happiness not coming from attaching to the external, really, and physical things and attaching yourself to anything like that. It is about the internal process. It is about yourself and process over result. But the thing is, you need that happiness, you need that peace to then get those results. And that is the kind of contradiction I go back to again. When you want it too much, when you need it too much, that's kind of when it gets further and further away, and you stop focusing more on the process and thinking about things that could have been or should have been, or what you want or what you deserve, and not focus on the present of what you need to be doing right now, and also being happy to do the things that you do right now. A thing also in life as well, really, is people always want things, or they want to be things, and there's not really a great focus on what you are doing and who you are and your day to day. Something I always focus on now is not so much a focus on what I want to be in the future, but more so what I want my days to be like today. Am I having a day that I'm kind of proud of? Am I having a day that the work within it is good work, and I'm beating other people really in my field of having those good days? That's kind of really what's important to me. Not because it would mean I'm good in the long term as well, which it will, but it means I'm happy and committed to a process, and that the peace is kind of in that process more than it is in the result at the end of the day. The thing I talk about with athletes now, a good phrase I always use really, is I'd rather be a great person than do great things. If I try to be a great person, I will most likely do great things, but I would still focus on and rather be just a great person every single day, and whatever comes of that will come off that, but the happiness is really in that. So process over result, I covered quite a lot of things there, but it covers quite a lot of things in itself really. It's about acceptance and awareness of the present, keeping those two things in mind alongside balancing that with wanting to win. It's about, in the short term, doing the right things, having good days, doing the right things in the short term, focusing more so on that than what you want to be and what you want to have, and attaching yourselves to external things in the future. And I think to wrap all of that up, it means peace in the process, to be happy within the process itself, and realize that that is where your objective is, not in the result, but in having the best process that you can possibly have. That is the key, I think, for every athlete, every person wanting to do anything really. So yeah, thank you for watching and listening, and yeah, I will see you again probably next week.